far behind. Be where trouble melts like a lemon drops high above the chimney.
Okay, let's get started. Hi everyone, welcome. My name is Emma and I am the YES program coordinator at Iron USA, and we are so excited to see you all here for the Lead for GYSD webinar.
And hello everyone, my name is Micah and I'm the Grants Program Assistant at Iron USA. Today's webinar is all about Global Youth Service Day, a day dedicated to youth community engagement and social change and encouraging YES alumni to become involved.
So before we begin, let's go over a quick review of some of the features in this room so all attendees can navigate and participate seamlessly. So you'll see that you have a chat box setting. Please make sure that your setting is to all panelists and participants, so that way all the attendees can also see what you're writing. Please don't only send it to the panelist. We also have a great feature of using polls. So let's launch our first poll today. Who are you? So are you a YES student? Are you a YES alumni? Are you a YES staff member? Are you a YES Abroad alumni or student, or are you other? And for our attendees joining us via Facebook Live, please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section of Facebook. All right, we'll let a couple more answers trickle through. Great. Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna end the poll. And it looks like we have mostly YES alumni, staff members, and YES Abroad in here. Awesome. We just learned that Facebook Live is not working right now, so we will be recording this webinar and putting it on our YouTube channel, as well as putting it on our Facebook as a video. Great.
So GYSD is the largest service event in the world and the only one that celebrates the contributions that children and youth make 365 days of the year. GYSD is a big deal and it is celebrated in 135 countries. YES students and alumni impact hundreds of thousands of people each year, whether they are in the United States or their home country.
We wanted to host a webinar leading up to GYSD in order to share strategies and advice on leadership skills, volunteer management, and advancing community involvement so that YES students and alumni can develop GYSD projects before April 12th, which is the actual day for GYSD. Speaking of which, who has participated in a GYSD project before? Let's put another poll up on the screen to see which one of you have done a project. So have you ever done a GYSD project? Okay, and I'm going to end the poll in 5 seconds, so get your final votes in. Great, and we are at a 50-50 split. So 50% have done a GYSD project before and 50% have not. For those of you who have done a project before, please feel free to write a description of the project in the chat box to share your work with others. And for those of you who haven't done a GYSD project before, don't worry, you're in the right place to learn how to do it.
While many of you reported participating in previous GYSD events, we still aren't quite at that 100% mark. But don't worry, this webinar will teach you the skills to lead effectively and strategies to recruit, retain, and manage volunteers to have a bigger impact with your GYSD projects. So no matter whether you've participated in GYSD or have led your own project, this Lead for GYSD webinar is for you.
Being an effective leader can certainly be a challenge and requires a lot of hard work. On this webinar, we are going to discuss good leadership skills and how to best recruit and manage volunteers for large-scale projects. Of course, large projects come with challenges, and we want to give you the tools to overcome these challenges. So we have one more poll that we're going to put up on the screen. How many of you have encountered challenges in your alumni projects or any service projects that you've done? And again, feel free to write into the chat box, what are the biggest challenges that you've had in doing YES alumni projects? So again, the questions are, how often do you encounter obstacles? Frequently, sometimes, rarely, or never. And I'm watching the results come in and no one has selected never, which is good. It means you're being realistic and recognizing that every project comes with obstacles. So we'll give it 5 more seconds. And I'm going to end the poll and I'll share out these results. So 25% of you say frequently you are met with obstacles, 63% said sometimes, and 13% said rarely.
Today, we are going to hear from 2 panelists, Leen Al Yaman, the YES Senior Program Specialist at AMIDEAST Lebanon, and Anooj Bhandari, a community educator and activist. First, we will introduce you to Leen, and then after her presentation, we will introduce Anooj.
So Leen has been working on the YES program since August 2016. She's the YES Senior Program Specialist at AMIDEAST Lebanon. She has been part of the YES family for 10 years, having went on the YES program in 2008-2009, where she attended St. Andrew's Priory School in Honolulu, Hawaii. Upon her return to Lebanon in June 2009, she joined the YES Alumni Network. She pursued her bachelor's degree in business administration with emphasis in human resource management in Beirut on a fully funded scholarship. Leen has worked with Lebanese Central Bank, AMIDEAST, and Lebanon Reforestation Initiative, which was a USAID-funded project. And she says becoming a YES alumna marks the start of a mission towards community engagement and service. So we are so delighted to introduce Leen. Leen, if you want to turn on your microphone and your camera, and we are going to mute ourselves and go off screen, but if you have any questions, we'll be right here.
All right, thank you. Hi, everyone. So this is Leen. Please do let me know in the chat box. As you heard, I'm a YES alumni. So if you were a YES alumni of 2008-2009, please do let me know. Maybe we met in DC. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you some tips of workshops, GYSD projects that we did in Lebanon, and what are some tools that we learned from in terms of volunteer management and community engagement. I'm going to be using real-life examples of things that happened with us here, so hopefully this will give you a clearer idea of how you can implement it on the ground. Next, please. So as I said, I'm going to be touching base on volunteer management techniques and why it is important to have an effective volunteer management plan. I'm going to go over some alumni activities that would guarantee better community engagement, how you can lead successful GYSD projects, and what are some tips on doing that, and how to attract volunteers for GYSD project implementation, as well as how to guarantee buy-in for a project. Next, please. Okay, so volunteer management. First of all, why is it so important? I think a lot of you who either have planned before a GYSD project or even just general community service project know how tough it is to have volunteers and to have commitment from volunteers. So why is it important to have volunteers that are committed and to have a proper plan for managing those volunteers? It will guarantee that you would have higher engagement from volunteers if you have a clear plan on how you're leading them. This would guarantee success, increase in the success rate of the projects, because the more volunteers you have, the more organized the volunteers that you have are, each having their own role, the better success you would have for your project. And of course, the more successful projects you have, the better trust the community would have in you as a group or as an alumni in general, and this will guarantee buy-in for future GYSD projects. Next, please. So how you can build effective volunteer management. You can start with having a network of some sort for your alumni. So it could be, you can call it an association, an organization, it could be an official registered one, or it doesn't have to be. So for example, here in Lebanon, what we have is we have an alumni network, which includes over 500 alumni from 2003 till now. And they have some sort of like a community where we have specific structure. We have board members who are elected annually, and these board members are made up of one president and regional coordinators. Now, you don't have to go with one specific structure for your alumni organization or network. We've tried several ones. You see what fits best for your own alumni network in your countries. We've tried having a president with treasurer and social media specialist. We've tried different forms, and we figured that the current one that we have was the most beneficial for us here. So in Lebanon, we have 6 different regions, and now we have 6 different regional coordinators who represent each country, and they all report to the president. So as you see, now it becomes clearer of how you can recruit volunteers from different regions. So you have the volunteers reporting to the coordinators of each region, or even saying what they want or what projects they would like to implement to the coordinators, who then in turns go back to the president and discuss as a group. So having a structure can help you organize better, plus having coordinators for each region that already know the volunteers who are within their own community because they live with them in the same environment. You can identify key volunteers this way and their areas of expertise, and this could be helpful by having an Excel sheet or a database of some sort, where it could be as simple as putting in the names of volunteers from certain activities that you've done before, GYSD projects, having their education, what they're currently doing, their areas of expertise, the causes that they are passionate about or have experience in. So this would help you build a larger database for your volunteers, where you can, if you have a specific GYSD project for a specific theme, you can go back to it and find out those volunteers who are interested in such a topic. And this would help guarantee that you would have buy-in from the volunteers and commitment, because you're not just sending out a mass message to everyone, you're specifically targeting those who would be interested. Also creating a recognition system. So volunteers, yes, they do the work because they love what they do and because they're passionate about the cause, but having a recognition system could help a lot, whether it is within the alumni network itself, whether it is within the community, whether it is on social media. So here I'm giving you an example, as you see in the slides. The board members of last year within our network have created something called the e-newsletter. So this is not exclusively to the alumni, but it includes everything related to our alumni network. It has ads for upcoming activities, upcoming events, things that happened in the past. And it also has the, in case you missed it, where they recognize and they highlight one or more alumni for their accomplishment, for their volunteer participation. So you can have something like this platform in order to help encourage the volunteers to even do more and more. Next, please. Okay, now I'm going to talk. Yes, thank you. Now I'm going to talk about alumni activities for better community engagement. You, of course, I think most of us know that in order to implement successfully a project, it has to serve a need in the community. So first of all, I would encourage you to start, when thinking about starting a GYSD project, start by asking what the community really needs. So you can do that by talking with community leaders, such as municipality leaders, or people who are well known in the community, who usually people go to for help, or if they have any issue that they want to report. Ask those people, do short interviews with them, go to the residents within that community and ask them. And this could be easily done by actually, if each person who lives in that community from your alumni network can go to their neighbors, to their relatives, those that live next to them, and ask them, what are the certain things that you would like to change about our community? Or what are certain things that you think are a problem that we need to tackle or need help with? You can even check the trends that are going on either in the country, all of it, or worldwide. So for example, recently in Lebanon, it's become a huge topic, the recycling campaigns and the importance of recycling. So nowadays, since it's a nationwide idea, the alumni have changed their projects to focus more on recycling in different regions. Implement diverse projects serving different target groups. Of course, if we think about our communities, and even if we think about just the alumni network itself, we see how diverse it is, let alone if we're looking at a whole country or a whole region. So it's very important to keep in mind that different people who live in different regions may require different assistance and different GYSD projects that would help them and would be beneficial for them. So always think about having a diversity of ideas and themes to tackle. So from educational, from recycling, from serving food for the poor. So this is something important to keep in mind. Also to implement projects with long-term sustainability. Even if you're looking for community engagement, or if you're looking for buy-in from the community, it's very important to show that the project that you're doing is not just a one-time event, but it has a long-term effect on the whole community. So here I'm giving you the example of one project that the alumni did in Lebanon, where they established 2 local libraries in 2 different regions where there were no public libraries in those regions. So they went to the municipality leaders and they asked them if they could use a space that belongs to the municipality itself. So they took the permission, and as you see in the before photo, it was used for storage and most of the things were basically trash. What the alumni did is that they went there, they cleaned the whole area, they did a lot of campaigning for donations of books. They collected many of them. And by the end of it, when they launched it, of course, they did the launching in collaboration with the municipalities, where the municipalities took the initiative to encourage people to come and attend. And to this day, those libraries are still functioning and are still in use. So it's very, very important to have this long-term sustainability when thinking about GYSD projects. Next, please. So how you can lead successful GYSD projects? Of course, having a great idea for GYSD is always something that we want, and we always hope to be a very successful project. However, there are certain things that can help you even make sure more that you are having a successful project. One of which is structure, and I cannot emphasize enough on the structure, because if people see in the community that you know what you're doing, that you're organized, you got everything under control, you know everyone who's doing what, this would encourage people to have trust in you even more. So it's helpful for you to know who's accountable in terms of volunteers. So make sure to have subcommittees for your GYSD projects, and these committees, they do not have to be the same for every project. So for example, if you're doing a project that requires or needs a lot of social media footage or coverage, you would go for having a role specifically for someone who can take over the social media coordination. So creating committees by asking the alumni, okay, who would like to participate in that or take the lead on that? This would guarantee that those people who are participating, first, they have the commitment because they volunteered to do the job. Second, they have the expertise to give you the exposure that you need. And this would definitely guarantee successful projects. Also, coordinate with local and international NGOs. I think a lot of countries, if not all of them, they have local NGOs and international NGOs that work towards a specific a topic that serves the community. So if you know someone in these organizations, or if you can have a contact person with these organizations, pitch the idea to them, show them that you are organized, this is what you want to do, present your plan, and see how they can help you, either by if they can just post on their social media, if they can provide you with a space, if they can provide you with a contact for people in the community to help you make your project successful, and include and involve community members, especially the leaders. And I'm focusing on the leaders because, at least in Lebanon, we found out that if we have the leaders on board, the municipalities on board, the projects become easy to implement. And here I'm giving you the example of a grant that alumni won, and it's called Bosta Going Green. It's for recycling awareness, and as you see from their marketing, they have the municipality there, they have a local NGO that serves towards recycling there. So this would help you get more exposure. Next, please. Also, what is helpful that we found here in Lebanon is creating an action plan and a tracker. So this is something that this year we have, the board members have planned and created. It's where you put your GYSD projects with details such as the cost, who is leading on them, who is supporting, who are the possible partners that you can collaborate with, the date of completion, when, if you have specific dates. So for example, if it's targeting children, it should be on Child's Day. If it's targeting GYSD, to be close to GYSD date, the status of the project, and any notes. And this is also helpful for lessons learned later on, because if certain projects weren't implemented as planned, then you would see what happened and you can go back to it and work on it to make it better and make it successful. Next, please. How to attract volunteers for project implementation. Of course, the best thing is to ask them what they care about. So as we said initially when we started, it's very important to see what the alumni care about and target those specific alumni when doing a project related to that cause. Also using social media coverage and recognition. So here I'm giving you the example of you can post stories on the YES program website, stating the people who volunteered to make that project successful, the impact of the project, and also emphasize on the social impact of it on the local community. Because at the end of the day, the volunteers are doing it because they want to make their communities better. So if you emphasize on the effect of their project and their participation in that GYSD project on the local community, this would even motivate them more to be committed. Next, please. How to guarantee buy-in for your projects. Get organized. I cannot emphasize enough on the structure and the organization. And this is, as you can see simply that in nowadays in everything, all organizations or NGOs, they are successful because they have a specific structure, they are organized, they have people doing certain things with certain expertise. So when you give out that image to the community, you become a source that they can go to when implementing projects, or when they have a certain problem, they would go to you and ask you, what can you do for us in terms of projects that could help us better our communities. You also need to provide clear implementation and follow-up plans. Documentation is always important for your own sake, so that you can learn from previous experiences, and also for the community itself. Remember that you are not a well-known NGO that has been doing this for years. You are not an international NGO or a company that has been doing this for years. You are a group of youth, and the main thing that you are hoping to do is to help the community as much as you can. Yes, you have a lot of expertise, but maybe that's not quite showing to the community. So it's very important to provide them with documentation of your previous successes, of your previous projects, so that they would be more encouraged to help you with the project that you're implementing nowadays. And a very, very important part is to collaborate with those and with NGOs, as we said before. So for example, here for an awareness campaign, we collaborated with the Cultural Center in Bakhoun, which is an area, a region in the north. And we found out that because the center has announced this themselves in the area, we had a lot of turnout to the session. So in order to guarantee people coming in and trusting you, you have to show them that you are trustworthy, that you have the clear plan, that you have experience in what you're talking about, and that you have collaborated with people who have the experience to do that. Next, please. So now this is sort of a quick advice based on our experience here in Lebanon, but I wanted to end with a quote that is I found to be very important. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? So here it all goes back to the YES community and being a YES alumni. And for us as serving YES alumni in our communities, go back and remember why we did this in the first place. Go back and learn from what we learned in the US in terms of volunteer work, in terms of project implementation, and bring all of that back to our communities to use the local resources that we have in terms of NGOs, in terms of YES staff on the ground, and see how we can move forward towards making our communities better. And I think, I'm not sure if we're answering questions now, Amma, or if we're waiting till the end.
Yeah, there's been a few coming through,
Okay.
so I think we can wait until the end.
Okay.
But I want to ask you, based on your own experiences, what advice could you give on the best ways to approach an organization to start collaboration?
Okay, so one of the things that I found to be it makes things go faster is if you get a paper or a documentation from your YES staff saying that yes, you are a YES alumni, that this organization is confirming that you completed a program and that what you're doing is for the sake of that project that you have. So if you have help from the local staff, this would show a better response from the NGOs. Also, if you know people, so usually the volunteers are doing things in their own community, and some staff in those organizations could be known to someone that you know. So if you have connections, you would just go and ask them informally if they can talk to them for you, so that they would have you come in and talk to them about the project. So once you have documentation of the plan and you go to them, usually it's very easy. At least I've seen it here in Lebanon. It's very easy and they're very responsive when you go to them with a clear plan and a timeline.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much, Leen. That was really insightful. If
Thank
you
you.
have any other questions for Leen, please feel free to share them in the chat box. We're also live on Facebook now, so add your questions into the comments or just share your thoughts and ideas. Now to introduce Anooj. And during his presentation, Anooj will lead us through a leadership activity, so feel free to take this time to find some pen and paper to take notes. Anooj Bhandari is a community builder, youth engagement activist, and artist. He facilitates youth organizing programs in the United States and abroad. His main focus is to help youth make changes in their immediate communities and have a positive impact on their future. Anooj is currently working with youth of color in New York to build community-based alternatives to punitive discipline in schools and communities.
So Anooj, if you want to come on video and microphone, we are ready for you. And again, Anooj is going to be leading us in an activity, so it's really helpful if you have pen and paper to go along with his activity. Anooj, we're going to turn our mics and video off, but if you need anything, we'll be right here.
Cool, sounds good. Thanks a lot. Can you all hear me? If somebody just wants to type like a yes into the group chat so that I know I can go ahead and get started. Okay, amazing. Hey everybody, so my name is Anooj. As said, I work as a youth organizer, specifically in New York City right now with community-based alternatives to punitive discipline. So jumping into just a little bit more of what that is, right now, like in the school system, where I mainly work, every time somebody does something that's deemed wrong, there's usually disciplinary action that's taken towards them, whether that's being taken out of school for a certain amount of days, taken out of school completely, involvement in the court system. And what I specifically do is organize young people and community members to essentially say that we have community alternatives that can actually take care of people better, and to work to form alternatives to putting people into the court system, into the prison system, or pushing them out of communities. It's essentially saying every time somebody does something that we believe creates harm, instead of pushing them out, there's actually a way to bring people in. And so it's really working to organize communities around building that system of taking care of one another and what that looks like. So specifically, we call it restorative justice. There's different terms for it around the world that's used. But I do consider myself a community organizer, and a part of that is understanding that change in communities happens at all levels. And so one of the things that I would love to talk about today is a community organizing model that we use in my workspace as a youth organizer, to hopefully give you all some skills to be able to apply to your Global Youth Service Day projects, and to kind of think more broadly about how to activate the potential and power of your communities. So this slide that's up, as you can see, sorry, is this slide up right now?
Yes, it is.
Okay, amazing. Thanks, Emma. Okay, so as you can see, the slide is up right now. There's this target that's on the left side with 5 different levels in it. If we think of this target as a whole, as your community, we're going to walk through together what 5 different levels of this space are, and kind of have some questions for you all to think through, to kind of be able to build a greater plan around your Global Youth Service Day project, and to also hopefully just think a little bit about what the power that exists within your community is. And so if we consider this entire target as your community, this first ring around it, the white ring that we're looking at, is what we consider our constituents, right? And so our constituents are everybody who is impacted in some way by the change we're trying to make, or the issue that's at hand, right? And so when I think of my work in educational justice, and when I think of the work of like fighting against the push out of young people from schools, from their communities, and I think about who's impacted, we have students, we have teachers, we have the educational administration, we have parents, we have families, we have siblings, right? And so there's a lot of different people who we consider as our community when we're doing this work. And so what I would love for you all to start with doing, and I can give like a couple minutes between each of these prompts, is just to begin thinking, who is the community that's impacted by your Global Youth Service Day project issue, right? And that could be people who are impacted by an issue that you want to address, or people who are impacted by a change you feel excited to make. And so if some people want to type out their responses into the group chat, that would be amazing as well. But let's just take a minute to maybe think about who is our community that's being impacted. And if anybody has any questions as we're going along, feel free to type those in as well, and I'll be happy to respond.
So let's take about 20 more seconds for people to type into the chat box who in your community is impacted by the issue being addressed in your GYSD project. And if you don't want to share, that's fine, but we do encourage you to write it down so you can take all these ideas forward and use them in the future.
Amazing. So for example, the comment that just came up about the plan to do a beach and market cleanup. The question that I would ask is, who's most impacted by the cleaning up of the beach and the market? So who benefits from that space being clean? And it doesn't have to be one single person. It could be the entire community at large, just to be able to think a little bit more. Amazing. So this is awesome just to see like the variety of different projects that people are working on. But yeah, another thing that I want us to think about as we're going through this model is to think, where do you feel like you fit into this model and where would you like to be, right? And the answer to those things can be the same thing. Or you could say, maybe I'm one place right now and would like to be at another in the future. One of the really important things to remember is that this model is supposed to represent everybody in your community, right? All of the people who are being impacted. And so to think for yourself, what's the relationship to the issue that's at hand? How are you specifically impacted by the issue that you're working to address? Cool. So if we could go to the next slide. Amazing. So now we're going to the second ring, which is the black ring, and that's our base. So the base is the second level of what we call our community organizing model. And the base and the constituency are very, very similar groups. The one big difference between them is education, right? And so if we consider our constituents, everybody who is impacted in some way by the issue at hand, our base is made up of the people who are both impacted by the issue and educated on the fact that the issue exists, right? And so again, if we're thinking about my example that I started out with thinking of working in education justice, I would say there's a lot of students who are being pushed out of schools, a lot of students who are facing punitive discipline that may not be educated or don't know that that's something that's happening to students all around the city, all around the country, right? And also aren't aware that this situation specifically in the United States disproportionately is impacting young people of color. And so when we think of our base, it's made up of those people who are actually working to build education with, right? Building the knowledge of the awareness, building the knowledge of who is impacted the most, building the knowledge that it's even an issue to begin with. And so again, the big difference between a constituents and base is simply education. Who is aware of the issue and what are you doing to educate them? And so the question that I would really love for people to think about is, what spaces in your community have untapped potential for learning and growth? And so you can think of every single space that exists in your community, whether it's a small classroom or an outdoor space, or maybe even the living room of your house, or maybe even your family, and think, where could people gain more education on this issue? Right? And so if people want to name some of those spaces, just so we can see really like what the variety of places are, that we can create spaces of education in, that would be amazing. So I'll give another like minute or so for people just to think about that question. Yeah, so Martha just said, I think for my library project, a good place to go would be to schools. That's amazing. I have a student team that I work with of 8 young people, and we always do what we call potential walks. And they're walks either around our schools, around our community, around spaces that they enjoy going to, where we'll walk around with notebooks and just take notes on like what could possibly be created in those spaces, right? And it's a really good reminder for us to always be thinking about like, how do we grow and change what we know is possible, right? Like I work out of this office, and I have like a larger office with a space that I get to host young people in and that I get to do group projects in. But I also know that in my work, I can't consider this as the only space that I can create change in. And so a part of my everyday and a part of what the team that I work with does is we look around us and say, like, how can we build something here? How can people learn here? How can people grow here? Amazing. And again, as we're going through this, if there are any questions, please feel free to ask.
Yeah, and I think in the interest of time, people can continue to type when Anooj is speaking, but we do want him to get through his the other 3 groups. So if you want to go on, and people, please feel free to continue writing into the comment box.
Cool. All right. So the third ring, which is the blue ring, is for members. So when we think about our members in community organizing, we think of the people who, again, to go over what the rings 1 and 2 are, they're the people who are impacted by the issue, they're the people who are educated on the issue, and then the big difference between the members is that they're the people who are ready to take action, right? I would guess that at this point, if you were a part of this group chat, that everybody here would at least be a member in thinking about the issue that they're trying to impact, right? I'm assuming that everybody is here because you are interested in taking action to make change, and you are educated on something that's impacting your community. I also want to point out that in this model, you can be in different places with different issues, right? And so, for example, when I think of educational justice, I would say that I'm in the center, which we haven't gotten to yet, but we will. But in different issues, I have different amounts of time to be able to give to them. I have different amounts of availability. I have different amounts of education. And so for one issue, I may be at the 5th circle, and for another issue, I may be at a 1 or a 2. And that's okay, right? Because it's kind of a lifelong journey of going through these in the different issues that are impacting us. Because all the things that are impacting us are very like intersectional, right? They intersect with one another and they impact one another. So yeah, the really big thing about looking at membership is thinking what skills exist in your community that may not be utilized right now, and how can you encourage them to be used, right? And so a really big part of this is remembering that your community already has what it needs to succeed. Those things just need to grow maybe, and those things just need to be activated. And so a really big thing for me is being able to recognize what are the skills of the people who are around me. And skills can look like really different things, right? Skills can look like something as simple as making a poster to leading a session and recruiting people, right? And so really acknowledging that leadership looks many, many different ways. And one of the best ways to be able to bring people onto a project is to empower them to have leadership within that project, right? The idea of if somebody is educated on an issue and ready to take action, you putting responsibility in their hands, whether a big responsibility or a small one, can be an act of empowerment, right? And a huge part of doing a Global Youth Service Day project isn't just to walk away from the project saying, okay, I did that, but to say, okay, I did that, and people felt empowered while doing it. People felt ready and motivated and excited to create change while doing it, right? And so another thing I just want to bring up is that the process that you use to create change is just as important, if not maybe more important than the actual change itself, right? If you're able to change people's minds and hearts and attitudes towards even their own skill set while you're working with them, that can be really incredible. And I think globally, one of the reasons Global Youth Service Day is so important is that youth don't always have like full access to expression of their voice in larger public levels. And so to be able to create platforms for other young people to actually have their voices heard can be really powerful. Utilizing your membership can be one of those biggest ways. So yeah, maybe just take another like 30 seconds or so to think like what skills in your community may not be utilized right now, and how can you encourage them? I know for me, There's a lot of students who may not be able to stay after school, for example, and do work with me, but are really excited to be like thinking about change, are really excited to create change within their households. And so for me, one of the skills that I'm like really excited to bring about is people's excitement around conversation and thinking like, okay, if like after school isn't the place that you can do it in our school, how do we also empower you with skills to bring those conversations up at home or with your cousins or siblings or friends? Cool. Thanks, Emma. Amazing. So we're going to the fourth circle, which is the red one, and that's leaders. So leaders, I would say that the definition of leader in this model is like what we hear is a pretty typical definition of leadership, but I would remind you all that leadership exists on all of these different levels, right? And so when we specifically talk about leaders in this community organizing model, leaders are the ones taking charge in putting together actions, right? They're the people who may more typically be the face of a movement or an action. And we usually use the word actions to kind of like encompass all different types of projects, right? I know in my work, we do everything from like rallies to like service days, to education events, to protests. And in all of these different spaces, we're continually, we call them actions because they all kind of revolve around the same form of change. So action is just a more general word that we use. So yeah, a leader is kind of the face of a movement, the one kind of putting all of the things together to kind of actually make those actions happen. And the big question for a leader is, how do you remember, even as a leader, to acknowledge leadership in every level of this target, right? To essentially say that even if you are the one who is the face of something, the one who's really putting things together to be able to happen, how do you acknowledge that you can't do it alone, right? That is actually a group effort, a collective effort, a team effort. Yeah. I think we can go on to the fifth one. Amazing. So community organizer, this is definitely the ring in this that I feel the most passionate about. So community organizers develop their community members to go through these different levels of involvement in their community, right? So they're the people who in communities who are helping the process happen of other people to go from 1 to 5. And that's a pretty magical process to engage in, right? To be able to be somewhere where you can be alongside your community members and see them turning into base members, into leaders, into organizers, and actually being like a catalyst for change in your community that's more behind the scenes and more putting stuff together that's maybe not in the more public eye. And so a really big thing about community organizers is that they really work through values-based leadership. And when we think of values-based leadership, when we think of values, we really think about the things that are pushing your decision making, the things that you hold most important, the things that you protect the most on an everyday basis. I know for myself, one of those things that I protect the most in my work is expression, right? I want young people to be able to go through our schools knowing that this is a safe place for them to be able to express themselves, to be able to express their needs, to be able to express their wants, to be able to express their dreams. And so expression is something that I think a lot of people believe in our community. And so understanding that you can motivate your community towards change through shared values is a huge part of what it means to be a community organizer. When I talk about educational justice, it might be this big idea that's up in the air that not everybody can understand. But when I talk about the value of expression and the need to use your voice, the want to tell somebody something about yourself, that's really how more people start joining in on the movement, right? And through an understanding of that value and something that we hold close, we're able to bring other people to the larger issues, maybe the things that are in the air that are maybe a little bit tougher to understand. So yeah, I think as like a final question, I wanted to ask, what do you value most? and how can you share that community with the world? How can you share that value with your community around you? Yeah. So as we're thinking about this, I wanted people to just reflect on the question, where do you think you are now on this model, right? We have constituents, the people who are impacted, the base, the people who are impacted and have the education of the issue, members, the people who are ready to take action, leaders, the ones who are organizing the actions, and community organizers, the ones who are bringing people from being at ring 1 to ring 5.
Great, so the answers are coming through. Let's take another 10 seconds. Just almost 50% have voted, and that number continues to rise. Okay, 5 more seconds to get your votes in. Are you, do you identify as constituent, base, member, leader, or community organizer? Okay, I'm going to end the poll and share results. So Anooj, what do you make of this?
So I actually can't see it on my screen. I don't know if there's another way to be able to relay the data to me. But
0%
cool.
identified as a constituent, 14% identified in the base, 43%, which was the largest, identified as a member, 36% as a leader, and 7% as a community organizer.
Yeah, that's amazing. So it sounds like most people found themselves in the members area. Is that true?
That's correct.
Yeah, I think that's really beautiful, specifically because it shows that we all have like room to be able to continue growing and how we understand change to happen in our communities. What I really love about the space of being a member is that you can be really like there's a lot of variety in the different roles that you can play, right? Being a member is really a way to be able to explore how change happens and to really be able to think about your own skill set and how to utilize that. So the question that we had asked with membership, sorry, I work in a school, so the bell's ringing right now. So the question that we had asked is like, what are the skills that exist in your community that are being underutilized? Maybe a good question for people to ask themselves is, what are skills that you have that you're really excited to use? And how do those skills relate to the change that you want to create? Yeah.
Great. Did you want that last poll up there as well about where should they go in the future? Where would they want to be in the future?
Yeah, that's amazing. So I think the second poll that we'll do is, where do you want to be, right? And I'll start by saying that it's totally okay for everybody to not want to be a community organizer, right? As I said, like for different issues, you'll find yourself in different places. And so, yeah, if we want to do that second poll, like where are you interested in going in this model?
Great. So we launched the poll. We have 50% of our responses coming in so far. And this is really interesting to see. I can't wait to share the results.
Yeah. And also, so Gloria just said, I've only previously seen it more like a pyramid or hierarchy. And one of the reasons why we really want to use this model is because it puts everybody alongside one another, right? It's not saying that this part is more important than this part. It's saying that like all of these things are essential and all of these things sit within a community together.
Great. Okay, I'm going to end the poll and sharing the results. So 7% said they would like to be in the base, 50% said they would like to be a leader, and 43% said they would like to see themselves as a community organizer in the future.
Amazing. That's awesome. Very exciting.
Great. I think we can stop screen sharing now. And Leen, would you like to come back on screen so we can answer some group questions? We have just about 5 minutes left.
Sure. So did you keep track, or do I go back with in the chat? Okay.
Yes. So we did keep track. One of the first questions that came through was, what are both of your strategies to keep people involved over time? It might be really easy to get someone for one project or to do a potential walk, like you were saying, Anooj, but then how do you hold on to that volunteer or that person so they continue to stay passionate about what you're doing?
So for us, I think it's very important to be creative in terms of the GYSD projects, in terms of the ideas, in terms of the regions where you want to implement them, because it is true, it's very hard to have alumni committed for a long period of time. However, you have that small pool that really believe in the cause and are committed no matter what throughout the years. But it's also good to always be creative, always think of new ways that you can implement a project, or new ideas that could possibly be another way of serving the same cause. So that's my answer.
Yeah, I mean, I would say a couple things. I think first of all is that I don't know if I've ever worked. I think if people feel valued and if people feel cared for, they'll be a lot more likely to stay on board with whatever is going on. I think for me, one of the really big parts of this work is to remember that like relationships come first, way before anything that somebody can do to like contribute to a project, right? And that building relationships with your community, building relationships with the people who are involved and are excited to get involved is like the number one way to keep people. And also like one of the biggest ways to actually like effectively make change. If people again feel empowered, cared for, like they want to be there, that in itself is like a huge way to change your community. I also think giving people room to like be mobile in their roles, like be okay with the fact that somebody's skill set may call them to do one thing one day and one thing the next day, and being able to be flexible and adaptive to that, I think is really important. I think like we call it burnout, like when people are using their skills at 100% all the time, people can get really, really tired. And so to remember that like, it's okay for people's roles to change. It's okay for people's skill set to change. And it's also okay for people's energy to change. Somebody who may be able to give you like hours a day at one period of time may only be able to give you a little bit of their time another time. And it's not really seeing how things are like changing, saying whatever you have, how do we use it to our best?
Great. Lee, this one's specifically for you. Encourage the new cohort of alumni to get involved with GYSD projects or YES alumni projects in general.
This is very easy. So as soon as they come in with super excitement about wanting to help everyone in their community. So their ideas are sort of all over the place. However, what we do is during the re-entry workshops, we give them a presentation about all the activities that have been implemented across all regions of Lebanon by YES alumni. And this gives them an idea of, wow, a lot of people have accomplished great ideas. Let's do something similar. Or it would keep them, or it would give them the chance to ask about specific alumni who led projects. And so they would be connected directly with that person who did a certain project in the past related to the same topic, and they can help them out. So it's all about the support system that they have within the network.
Great. Okay, and then I guess the last question for the both of you, if you can just give one more tip for all of the YES students and alumni who are about to start their GYSD project, what would it be, your final piece of wisdom to share out?
For me, I think it would be choose something that you're truly passionate about, because I think if it starts with the person who is leading the project, if you really believe in the cause that you're working to do that project in, it will give you the push to get over any obstacles, to push and ask people in the community to be extremely active when asking about volunteers. So I think just choose topics that speak to you and that are very close to your heart.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think passion is just like probably the most important thing that we come across in doing community organizing work and doing work of trying to figure out how to change our communities. I think it's like, well, I think we like live in communities where there's a lot of like finite forms of power, right? Like when we think about money and resources and space, like all of those things are measurable. And to me, passion is like an immeasurable form of power. And so to be able to like unlock your own passion is really to like make yourself undefeatable.
Awesome. We actually had one more question that came in from Facebook. And Amna asked, what are the best ways to convince an audience about how important your project is?
I mean, I can take this back to the idea of like values-based based leadership that we talked about in like the community organizing circle. There's like statistics and things like that I can use to talk to people, but I think I've rarely seen people buy into a cause because of statistics right off the bat. I think it's more so the emotions of like, why do these statistics matter? Sorry, there's an announcement happening, so I'm gonna put myself on mute really quick.
Leen, do you want to take on?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing as well for me. So yes, you can provide all of the documentation and all of the statistics, but if you show them the impact on the people, on the individuals in the community, this would sort of have the emotions going and make them want to do something and believe in what you're saying. So having an emotional message, I think, in the advertisement.
Mm-hmm. And Leen, I think it also goes back to what you were saying earlier about the importance of being organized. And when you're going to meet with different organizations that are doing similar work, to show them what you've already done and prove to them that you've done your research on this topic, on that organization as well.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, we're at 10 o'clock, so it's been an hour. But Micah and I just want to share some more resources for anyone interested in doing a Global Youth Service Day. So it is April 12th to 14th. You can register your project at leadasap.ysa.org/GYSD, and we will put that in the chat box. You can engage with GYSD on social media. You can use Facebook at tag at Youth Service America and use hashtag GYSD19. On Twitter, you can use tweet at Youth Service, again with hashtag GYSD19. Instagram at Youth Service, and YouTube, you can watch any videos at Youth Service. We hope that with the knowledge you received today, we will see more YES alumni and students registering GYSD projects and engaging in community service on April 12th to 14th.
Yes, and thank you so much for joining us today. We are really excited to continue celebrating GYSD over the next few weeks with you. Please continue updating us on your GYSD projects by tagging us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter using the handles that you see on the screen. We also encourage you to submit a story about your GYSD experience on the YES website. For more GYSD project resources, check out youthserviceamerica.org and keep a lookout for the resources that we will share with you on social media throughout the month of April. Thank you again for coming, and happy GYSD.
Thanks all.